Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video I'll be doing my March wrap-up. So I read a total of 6 books this month, which I was really pleased about, and I actually really enjoyed all of them. So it was a really good reading month overall. I feel like in terms of genre they were kind of all over the place, which is always good too. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first read the Tales and Teacups book club picks for the months of March and April, and so I ended up reading Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Cain. So this is about a woman whose husband was a notorious serial killer, and when it all went down, basically everyone thought she was involved because how could she not know that this was happening in her garage? But she was proven innocent, but despite that, people still think she was involved with this, with her husband. So she's kind of, and her kids have been kind of harassed by people online, so they've been kind of moving from town to town under different identities to kind of escape that, and they finally are settling down into a place that actually feels like home for them until this body appears in the lake with the same MO that her husband had with the bodies that he mutilated, and it kind of takes off from there. But I really like this actually. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I found the beginning to be really slow. It wasn't until like the halfway point where things actually start to pick up when the body is actually found. So it did take a while to kind of, for me to like push through to that, but the end was so fast paced and there's so many twists and turns, and I was like honestly trying to figure out like what was going on. So I really enjoyed the ending, and that's what really saved this book for me. And it ended on such a cliffhanger that I was like, I need to pick up the next one right away. But yeah, I have like my full review of this, which I've already linked up in the cards, where I go into more detail about this. But I found like Gwen's paranoia, which is basically a lot that's talked about in the first half of the book, very much to be just kind of over the top. Like, I can understand being paranoid, but it was just to the point where it was just so like, it took away from the story. And yeah, it was like there were several times, like maybe 2 or 3 times within the first 50 pages where she almost accidentally shot her kids because she was so paranoid. But like once you get past that part, like I said, around the halfway point, it actually was really enjoyable. And then right after that, towards the end of the month, I ended up picking up the sequel, which was Killman Creek, which I enjoyed so much more than the first one. So this one basically picks up right where the last one ended. And it was just, they hit the ground running. It was really intense. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was really intense, so many twists and turns. And the only like complaint, the reason why I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars, because I really did not like the kids. I like the kids in this one, but the kids in this book for some reason were just really annoying, and I just did not like reading from their perspective in this one. Like I don't know, it drove me nuts. And it was also like irritating too because they were staying with like another like 2 adults, and like they were just completely oblivious with everything, and like all this stuff happened underneath their noses and they didn't even know. So that like was irritating for me. But yeah, I still really love this book despite that. I enjoyed Sam and Gwen's chapters a little bit more than the kids ones, sadly. But yeah, I really like this one. It ended kind of like on a good ending, so I'm curious to see how the next one like kind of progresses the series, because I think right now there's going to be 4. The 3rd one comes out in April, and then the 4th one next year. So I'm interested to see kind of how this kind of progresses. But overall, like I'm really pleased with this series. Like if you like Criminal Minds, this is a little bit darker than Criminal Minds, but you'll like this series overall. Like I really like all that stuff. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. So next, I also ended up reading probably my most anticipated book of the year, and it is The Huntress by Kate Quinn. So I read The Alice Network last year and I really loved it, so I had high expectations going into this one, and it did not let me down. So this follows, like, it's kind of like there's a lot of storylines interwoven to this, but basically it's centered around the Huntress, who is a very notorious Nazi who was known for kind of manipulating and torturing women and children. And so she ended up escaping at the end of the war. So we follow Ian, who 5 years after the end of the war is trying to track her down. He kind of cross paths, or his paths are intertwined with Nina, who was what they call the Night Witches, who was a Soviet pilot during the war. And then there's Jordan, who is a young woman in Boston, and somehow their stories are intertwined as they're trying to kind of find the huntress. But this one was so good. I really loved what I really loved with the Alice Network too is just how seamlessly she could weave in these two storylines, because it does jump around a lot in time. This one is a little bit of a slow burn though, so it's a lot of like the first part of the book is just setting the stage for kind of like everything that takes place, but the ending in this was just phenomenal. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it was just everything I wanted to be and more. It was honestly 5 out of 5 stars. I love this so much, and like it was like, I still think the Alice Network I love just a little bit more, but this one was just as good as well. So if you are a historical fiction buff, I highly recommend you check this author out. She is honestly so good, and if you've read the Alice Network, there's a little cameo in here from one of the characters in there as well, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, like I said, probably my favorite book that I've read this year so far. So this was a book that my cousin got me for Christmas, and it is Year One by Nora Roberts. And this is like, I honestly did not know what to expect going into this. It's basically like a mix of her like magic system with like sci-fi post-apocalyptic like fantasy stuff going on. And basically the premise of this is that there is this kind of unknown virus that is killing people by the billions, and people that are immune to this are those who have some sort of magic in them. So either like no matter where they are, they could be like a fairy or like at the top of the scale as a wizard, and those people are the ones that are living. And so it kind of causes this whole chaos. Society is thrown into chaos, and like for the first 50 pages or so, like I'm not sure what's going on, but once I really got into the story, I was really invested. I've never really read anything like this. I've read Nora Roberts' Cousins O'Dyer trilogy in terms of the magic system. It's very similar to this, so I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's kind of best going into this not really knowing too much about it and just kind of experiencing it, but I really liked it actually. I was like pleasantly surprised. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I really was surprised. It's very action-packed, and it's just like if I was in that situation, like just thinking about it gives me a lot of anxiety. So like some parts of it were like making my heart beat out of my chest, but I really love all the characters in here. And I'm really interested to see what happens next. I'm waiting for the second one to come out on paperback, so probably be until like next year before I get to read it. But yeah, I was really actually pleasantly surprised. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, yeah, I highly recommend you check this one out. Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. And this again was another highly anticipated book, and it probably is number 2 on my favorite so far of this year, and it is Ambush by Barbara Nicholas, and this is the 3rd book in the Sydney Parnell series. So this one is a little bit different compared to the other 2, which have dealt with kind of just a general murder and Sydney solving it, but this one kind of deals more with what went down in Iraq a couple years ago, and so this is dealing with the aftermath of that. The first 2 books give us little hints in what's going, like what happened and like why there was a cover-up, and these people are out to get Sydney and an Iraqi boy who kind of saw something that he shouldn't. So this one kind of deals with it. This one honestly hit the ground running right from the beginning. Like it's so intense. I really love seeing Cindy. In this one there's a lot of character growth in terms of her vulnerability, and there is like a major plot twist in here, and I loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was honestly so good. All the books, like the 3 books in the series, I've given 5 out of 5 stars. They're really unique. If you are, I think, new to crime, I think this is a good series to start with, because it's a little bit, it kind of like separates itself from the status quo, and I think that's really interesting, and just it's really different too. Her sidekick is a canine companion named Clyde, which also kind of adds to some humor and all that. But like I said, I really like this. It was honestly so good, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next one. And lastly, I ended up reading The Crown, the official companion for Volume 1. So basically, this covers everything that happened in Season 1, if you're familiar with the Netflix show. But I'm a very big history person, and I really love like Downton Abbey, The Crown. Like I really love those historical pieces. And so this one basically goes into more in depth of the history behind each episode of Season 1. I think the Season 2 version of this comes out in November, I want to say, but it was really interesting. It was really well done, even though it kind of reads as like it's technically a nonfiction history book. It reads like like it's like reading like a novel. And it helped too because it is basically based off of each episode, like, so I kind of have a general idea of what's going on during this time period, and this kind of goes more into the details about everything. Like, there's a lot of pictures scattered throughout, and it talks about like what was changed in the book, or what was changed in the TV show, like what actually happened, or like kind of more history behind some of the things that actually are kind of mentioned in here. And so I really like this. I grew up in Canada, so some of the kind of British history I'm familiar with, but it's more so the politics that I was confused about in terms of like the different sides and all that. So this kind of really helps me kind of grasp that a little bit better. So if you are a fan of The Crown, this is a really good kind of companion book to read as well. It's just really interesting, I think, just in terms of just everything that happens in, or is happening during Elizabeth's reign. I think it's really, really interesting. And yeah, the history buff in me was just like living on cloud nine reading this, so I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars as well. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them, or if you're interested in reading these because I talked about them, let me know. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.